A warm welcome to this full review of the Volvo XC40 R-Design T4. Please join us for exterior, interior and the driving experience, because this car here, you want to see a little bit more of it, because at the moment, SUV trend, even stronger trend for smaller SUVs, and this vehicle here has been a lot in the comments. Why? We'll find out together in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! In the front you can see already a strong appearance. This one here, since this is the optional R design, also has a special dot style front grille. Headlamps come with LED either optional or included in higher trims, as is this one here, and then has this Thor's hammer design with the daytime running light as well. So a little bit more daring as for the design here, but this is also the smaller SUV. It should be a little bit more daring. We'll also see it continuing throughout this review. But also tell me, what do you think about the design from the XC40, also if you compare it to the other Volvo SUVs? 4.42 m, 14.5 or 174 inches is the length of the XC40. By that it is 26 centimeters shorter than the bigger brother, the XC60. Wheels go from 17 to 19 inch. Those ones are the biggest, 19 inch, optional even for the R design package. Of course they look best. But what about the comfort? We'll experience that in the driving part later on. This one here then also with contrast mirror caps and a contrast roof in black. And this is also, by the way, real paint. We've seen, for example, with the Toyota Corolla that it was just a foil, but this one here is actually real black paint and this is real white paint. So I think the contrast here with the black and white works quite well. Then also again, a crossover wheel arch all around here to give this SUV look. And then the special thing is rather here, indeed this one. You know, R design badge is stamped in right there. And this big C-pillar is the thing that is really special with the XC40 and also differentiates it a little bit to the other SUVs designs. What do you think? Especially very strong here with this real wheel arch, where the tail lamp already begins right here. Always hard to design an SUV in a dynamic shape, and I think here with this 3/4 perspective from the rear, you can see it's actually quite well done here by the Volvo designers. Then it has those typical L shapes of the tail lamps, which is features by Volvo SUVs and their estates. And also some central lines right here. And the typical beauty tips around there. There are two real exhausts, but they are just hidden there on the inside. And before we come to the engine hood, just at the right side of it, there's a small Swedish flag. It's just like a piece of rubber. Very interesting, nice, funny detail. Just wonder how long it will stay that way. We got hydraulic struts right there, like that. So you see just a small transverse mount here for the engines, only 4-cylinder and 1 3-cylinder engines. The diesels, 4-cylinder, 2-liter or D3, 150 horsepower, D4, 190 horsepower. Petrols, T3 with a 3-cylinder 1.5 liter, 156 horsepower, front-wheel drive and manual hand drive. And then, see here today, the T4, the 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine, 2-liter, 190 horsepower, front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. The latter one we have today, 8.5 seconds acceleration figure. And then there's the T5 with 6.5 seconds acceleration figure. Of course, it's the same engine here, 2-liter 4-cylinder. Turbo petrol with 250 horsepower, then always all-wheel drive and automatic gearbox. So we've driven the T5, today the T4, and we'll compare it in the driving part. Let's take a look at the interior together. Here, a structured part at the inside of the doors, also soft touch, nice quality. Then new, some more modern design right here, although it's not like a real tactile surface. Optional Harman Kardon sound system, I recommend that. It's coast intensive, but if you love music, it will have a great sound. And then you can see color-wise, you don't have to go for that orange, but you can actually. And also new materials, they use felt here on the inside, just to do something different. I mean, why not? Also with the orange floor mat, very interesting, this combination. You know, I would not necessarily pick the orange color, but again, you also have some other choices. R Design steering wheel, because we have the R Design trim level here today. Also with the entry cap here in the lower part from R Design. And then it also comes with those sport seats. They have a little bit bigger side bolsters right there. They are very comfortable. Volvo has some good ergonomics on the seats. And they are also having the microfiber on the inside. That's really good. So I can recommend you to go for those here in that trim. That's really cool. Especially in Europe, you also have a cheaper alternative with the base fabric seats. So this would be the best price performance tip from me. Keep it with the base fabric seats then, especially in Europe. In the US, they are not available at the moment. And now let's get inside, and that's super easily done. And although it's not the biggest SUV, you already have a grown-up SUV feeling. You have a lot of space to move around. So also when you're a tall person, you feel very comfortable. And again, those Volvo seats here, very good in the ergonomics. I like it. So at the moment, Volvo and Audi are leading it as for the seat form. Not essentially for the seat surfaces, but for the seat forms. You can also put the lower part here a little bit wider. And also the non-R Design seat form by Volvo here in the XC40 will also do fine. So both ergonomics are very good. Steering wheel here with manual control to put it up and down, and also as for, you know, the reach. So also like that. And for my size, 1m86 or 6'1", we have, by the way, you can put the seat a little bit lower here. There's a panoramic roof, but still there's headroom left. If you don't pick the panoramic roof, you will even have a little bit more headroom. For better driving ergonomics, I also recommend to put the back part of the seat a little bit higher. That's, you know, a little bit higher from the seating position and a better angle. You know, just that's what my experience is. We have an electric control here. Of course, this car also starts then with manual seats. The option list is indeed quite long, so you really have to pay attention not to make it too expensive. And now join me on this interior where we have some, well, minor soft touch on the top part. I would say it's not entirely hard, but it's also not soft. It's something in between. Harman Kardon sound system part here on the top part, and I mean, let me just play that. It's really cool surround sound. Wow. Really nice surround sound here for a smaller vehicle, so that's pretty cool if you have the extra money for the extra sound system. Again, this dot structure here from the R Design also has an inlet, but that's, you know, just, yeah, I mean, it almost feels like a sticker, but as for the visual part, it's quite interesting. Almost buttonless, this interior here, just here, for example, for the volume, you've seen that, and the hazard lights and so on. Everything else is done with this touchscreen. This size is also standard. Soon more details to that. The R Design steering wheel with this sporty inlet and lower part. Then those buttons here at the steering wheel where you control something of the digital instruments, for example. Well, they don't have this shiny cover, they have this matte surface. Some other reviewers criticized it, but I think it's really better than in the other Volvos because all those shiny surfaces are really, you know, not that well done. I think I like it here with the matte styling. What's your take on that? Then those digital instruments. They're indeed all digital, even if they have the analog style. And in the middle part, you would also see some GPS information if you have a route running. And the infotainment unit, put it to the left for example, activating assistance systems or deactivating it. Also, start up the car. Right here, then more of that is available. You can see. You can also go to the rear view camera. This is a little creepy angle, isn't it? The resolution is actually quite nice, but you know, here, not sure if it was the best position here. Then those helping lines, they also adapt, and there's also 360 degree available. Wow, this is really cool. good view from above, and then you can also, for example, switch to the front camera. Other than that, here you can go to the main menu right here. Then you have here, for example, when you have the CarPlay connection or Android Auto with the cable, or when you go to the GPS map right there, can browse in and out. It could be more responsive. You see, it takes some time until stuff builds up. Yeah, it's somewhat okay, but not like super done. So, and then on the right side, you have, for example, again, the Apple CarPlay access. Also can change the radio station and so on. And the options would always be slid from the upper part. And by the way, it collects a lot of fingerprints. When you hold this button, then you go into this cleaning mode. Then nothing is happening when you can clean it. Then just press it once again to go back in the normal mode. Temperature can be accessed right here, like this, like this. This is also possible. Yeah, controlling it while driving is not that well done. But then, for example, you can use the voice input. Set temperature to 20 degrees.
Temperature set to 20 degrees.
So that's then also a possibility. The back mirror here is frameless, therefore it looks really elegant. Also one of the features I really like when they pay such attention to detail. The lower part here of the middle console, here the upper part, you put it in for the CarPlay or Android Auto connection. The lower part would be for charging. Of course it works at the same time if you put then two smartphones in right there. Other than that, there's also the possibility for an inductive charging platform, another 12-volt power supply. Adaptive cup holders right there, and then there's this shifting lever. It's quite sleek and small, but then when I turn on the engine, this is the parking function, so you got P when you're just standing still. But then when you put in the D mode, this then is non-neutral, just neutral, twice to go into the driving mode. Then if you're easing around in the parking lot, press it twice to go into reverse, then press it twice again to go into D. You cannot push it like more forward or more backward or hold it or something. You always have to go in this two-step sequence. And that's really annoying over time. And then there's this middle armrest. You can flip it up like this. Have actually a lot of space underneath. And even in the front here, there's another like flipping. I mean, they were suggesting, for example, that you put like some handkerchiefs in there. But of course, you can use it for whatever. Oh, and not to forget those really large door pockets, so I think they work pretty well also for bigger bottles. And the panoramic roof is opened right here. By the way, you always have to power up the whole car, so a lot of the electric functions are not working just static. When you are just putting on the ignition, you really have to start the engine for that. Maybe it's about like some power savings or something. So you see here it opens just a little bit, but again, it's a nice option. Yeah, but again, always think about which all of the options you would go for or not. Let's now get inside. By the way, soft touch at the inside of the doors. We hardly see that. Good build quality overall here. And then you can see it directly fits, even if I'm driving as a tall driver. So 4 tall adults, no problem here. One of the best packages from the Volvo cars overall. Headroom also works with 1.86 or 6'1". Again, a little bit more headroom if you would not go for the panoramic roof, but especially for the rear passengers here, they can look through it and enjoy it even more. So it's an upright, comfortable seating position here. I mean, yeah, if I would stretch my legs a little bit further, of course I could use some more legroom, but again, it's also not the longest car. There are some cars, especially in the non-premium segment, which have a little bit more legroom even, but considering that the other Volvos have worse package than this one, this is already quite good. And again, also with those R-Design microfiber seats, it's actually really comfortable here. Interesting is we can already flip the seats from here. Then you can see that it has this automatic head restraint drop. That's quite interesting. And also, it's quite strong that they automatically flip. It should work then also from the trunk, that they really fall down automatically. So you do not have to unleash them right here. Just do it from the trunk. Isofix at the outside of the seats, and then there is this middle part where you put up this head restraint on demand together with some adaptive cup holders. You can use those. And in the middle part there's another climate unit for the rear passengers next to optional seat heating and another USB-C charging port. So let's open this electric hatch. And here we go with the trunk area. It's quite interesting. It has some very good square dimensions. Also here a flat loading sill. There's some space underneath you can also use. Then you can pull it up like this, also split it. That's good that not stuff is flying all around the vehicle, for example. So, and then you can, for example, here, use those ones here as hangers. Those the outer parts here for like shopping bags or something. So it's a really good solution. Yeah, you can also open it like this. Overall quite nice. Then you can also at the right side here release the seats and they flip. Very flawless, really cool. By the way, the overall length here to the seats, that would be 90 centimeters. That's already quite nice. The width should be 1 meter, that's the usual standard. Yeah, that's 1 meter. And when I have flipped the seats right here to my driving seat, this would be then 1.70 meters. This is also the difference if you think about an XC60. It is just a longer car, a longer trunk. It won't have, any other significant advantages, rather the longer trunk. And here, by the way, the height to the cover is 44 centimeters. Let me just put in some luggage right here. You can see cabin trolley. You can see, some dimensions of the trunk. You can also put it up in a vertical way. It has still enough space left, so very well usable, that trunk. So very satisfied here. Are you too? And the child safety test here for the torque of the rear hatch. Well, yeah, it's somewhat okay. It's not very sensitive, but sensitive enough. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Volvo XC40. Today with the T4 petrol engine. We have been driving the T5 earlier. You can also check out that review. Really interesting to see how that one here today plays out. So, start here a little bit in the city. I have already activated the semi-autopilot. So there are basically two levels if you have the highest trim of that. There's the adaptive cruise control that is actually just adapting the speed to the car in front of you. Then there's the so-called pilot assistance, also overtaking the steering. It's meant to be that you keep your hands on the steering wheel all the time. It's just assisting you. If you keep the hands off the steering wheel for too long, then the car starts to complain. And I feel that this system here is not one of the most evolved ones I've experienced. It's sometimes a little bit nervous and maybe it's searching its way to the one side too much. Yeah, this is a typical situation where it's not really applied very well. As soon as there are some lines, and of course it's working a little bit better. It's not always available. I will retest it. Now it's available again. I retested it on the motorway because that's also where it's mainly meant to. Here, see, that's not a good enough reaction for me. So here in the city, I'd rather keep it done with the adaptive cruise control. For example, at the cars, in front of me, when the next traffic light is being approached, that you can also, somewhat relax a little bit more. Here, see, I'm not reducing the speed myself. The car does it itself. Now here, just because there's a lower speed limit, and usually the cars in Germany don't obey the speed limits correctly, so I also go slower myself. So about the steering here, it is very light and does not convey a very natural feeling. It's still somewhat fun because it is, light and you don't have to steer too much, so you can do some nice slalom. That is actually quite okay. Again, it does not give you the best feedback, but also in this segment, it's not the most important point for that. It's easy to park in and out, when I want to go like here for parking or so, it's easy to steer then. And I think that's the most important thing here. The size of the steering wheel is actually quite good. This is also, as I showed you earlier, the R-Design steering wheel, which has this sportier layout. So it's actually quite cool to cruise around with that one. In general, if you compare it to the bigger SUVs at Volvo here, the XC40, of course, as the smallest one, also the most agile one, has the different platform. And it is therefore also the most fun to drive. So this less in weight really has a big effect. And the XC60, for example, is a nice, comfortable SUV, but I wouldn't really say it has some kind of sporty driving fun. But here this one can have actually some. So if you want to, oh, it was the autonomous emergency brake, I'm not sure. I've been experienced that in the Volvos over the years. I mean, they're one of the biggest assets is that they include their assistance systems big time into the standard equipment. And then you can, of course, even pick some optional like this pilot assist, for example. But for example, the autonomous emergency brake is standard equipment here at Volvo and has been for a while. Probably earlier than with most of the other manufacturers. But then again, especially this one tends to have here and there a malfunction where you're really like, whoa. I also know it, for example, when you're somewhere at the barrier, at the parking lot or something, and you approach it a little bit too closely. Suddenly the emergency brake sets in and bam. But you know, somewhat it's, you know that the system is working, that's of course good. But it seems to be that they have it in a more sensitive way than the other manufacturers do. So sometimes, I'm clearly awake now. I mean, it could be maybe when I have like a little steering to the left up there, and then the car maybe thought, okay, like the sensor is then maybe facing a little bit to the crossing traffic or something. That could have been a reason. The Agile Ride here in this very vehicle, by the way, is also boosted by A, the sport suspension that comes with the R design, and B, the 19-inch wheels. This is probably the sportiest setup you can get in a series production Volvo SUV at the moment. And as long as the road is good, that's pretty cool and it feels really, really nice. So again, a lot of fun. Although, you also have to bear in mind, Volvo is not the sporty brand. They also do not want to be. That's not their main asset. Also do not have to be. But you have to think about, this one here is light enough and will still drive somewhat agile if you don't pick the biggest rims, because, you know, maybe you picked that up on camera now when I was driving over some bumps. Yeah, that gets a little bit uncomfortable then in this combination with the sport suspension and the 19-inch wheels. So I would really recommend that you would go for smaller wheels, like 17, 18. And you probably also should not go for the R design suspension. So, as I heard also from the other vehicles, usually it's possible, if you check your configurator or prices in your market and also talk to your dealer, usually it's possible that you de-pick the sport suspension even if you want to go for an R design. You remember with the R design, those cool seats here with the microfiber, they also give you a lot of good support, so I really like those seats. But if it's possible, when ordering, I would just de-pick the R design suspension, because this SUV here, I mean, it's sporty and agile enough for a Volvo SUV. It does not need the special R design sport suspension. And now let's take it on to the motorway and also show you something of the acceleration. I can also go into driving mode, here dynamic, that boosts up the RPMs a little bit more. And we go from 60 kilometers to 100. Plop, that's it. So you see this 4-cylinder engine, of course, you hear how it's working, and I wouldn't, would I say struggling? Yeah, probably a little bit struggling, especially, you know, right here in the maximum acceleration at this mid speeds or something. The Macan S here still has the 6-cylinder, that's of course a different thing then. But usually if you're not talking about flooring it all out, it's sufficient for this vehicle. So the T5 has a faster acceleration, yes. So if you think about the T5, 250 horsepower with almost hot SUV, hot hatch style, 6.5 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour acceleration figure. This one here, the T4, is 8.5, so 2 seconds slower, but still, it is somewhat still sufficient for this vehicle. Remember, this is also available here with a 3-cylinder 1.5 liter petrol engine, So, and this can even be an entry level, car when you use it for the city or something. Here the 4-cylinder, of course, is better than the 3-cylinder when you are also going for it. Here on the motorway, then you have a little bit more power reserves. So on the motorway, actually, noise insulation wise, don't have to raise my voice that much. It's actually quite good impression, so we can't say anything bad about that. It's also at a good speed, 100 kilometers at the moment, 60 miles. And now here, now the suspension is really fun. When it's a little bit more cornerish and the road is very well surfaced, then it's a lot of fun to drive with a stiffer suspension and the bigger wheels. And again, I think it depends on your road surfaces. Applying the brakes. Yeah, you also feel that this is a lighter car, so the brakes are also very well applied then. Maybe here that I'm still in this dynamic mode. Yeah, that steering wheel, I think you have to turn a little bit too much. Still, it's easy to turn, and then again, you see it's not leaning that much to the side due to the sports suspension. The all-wheel drive system we have inbuilt here. This engine available with front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. If you go for the all-wheel drive, you have a nice corner, back on the motorway once again. So this is front plus rear because the base platform is front-wheel drive. And once again, a short period here with the pilot system. Again, don't take your hands off the steering wheel. But here you can see, just for example purposes, when you are on the motorway, it keeps it a little bit, better in the lines, and it's also not that nervous as it would be in the city. So here on the motorway, it works. Now it says apply steering. So now I have to go back, otherwise the system would be cancelled, and at some point the car would also be just then, reduce the speed. So again, for the motorway, it's quite good to have the system. Again, just to be able to relax a little bit more, let the car do the basic stuff. Of course, always still pay attention. Think of all the the offerings we have from the assistant systems at Volvo are in general quite good. So, and what else? If you put the shifting lever backwards, you can get in this manual mode. You can shift back yourself. For example, when you're rolling down a mountain or so for a longer period of time, you use the engine brake or put it to the right side, and then you can shift up. So this manual shifting is possible with the gear stick, or that's way easier right here with the shifting pedals. And if you go to the normal D driving mode, you see the bigger brother next to us now. It's always fun to see on the road. So you can also use the shifting pedals and then shift into different gears, 1, 2, and so on. I'll also do it now when I go here at green. You can see here the XC60, using the shifting pedals, so I can turn up the gears a little bit higher if I want. There's also the new generation XC60. You can maybe also see a little bit of the size difference. XC40, 60 and 90 now, and you always pay 10,000 euros or dollars more step by step, when you go a little bit bigger in the size. So indeed, this one is not a cheap SUV at all. No, especially if you equip it somewhat, but it will still be cheaper than the other bigger ones. Yeah. So, usually you just keep it in the normal automatic driving mode, and also the drive mode itself. Usually I have it here at comfort, and that's also just fine, and then you can keep rolling. And the consumption figure, by the way, it won't be much different than the one we had in the T5. It's the same base engine, it's just a little bit less horsepower tune. So the consumption difference will be just when you really are in those high RPM regions and really use all the power. But it will still be somewhat at 9 liters at 100 kilometers. That's about 26 mpg US or 31 mpg UK. And that's not good. So I experienced that quite a lot of times with all the Volvo engines, that they are not very efficient as for the fuel consumption. So if you have the possibility to get a Volvo plug-in hybrid, then it does indeed make sense if you can charge it frequently, especially because their usual ICE consumption is actually quite high. And there's a camouflage car coming, indeed, with BB number plate. for Böblingen. So that's an official Mercedes camo car. And that should be a GLB, guys. So a competitor of this one here. That was a GLB, I think. Yeah. So, surprise here at Autogefühl. It's always worthwhile to watch it full length. And you can, in this live on tape commentary, also check out some interesting new camo cars. The Mercedes GLB, that's the new compact SUV that will coming up by Mercedes. So between the GLA and the GLC. Very interesting. Again, yeah, I mean, you can also rate the GLA against this one. We did that also in our comparison test. You should check it out. Is always the question, which one do you directly rate if you look at the very dimensions? So I would say both are somewhat competitors, GLA and the upcoming GLB. And I can tell you already right now that we will, also have a static presentation of the GLB, of the official series production version coming up. And of course, we'll keep you updated on that in Autogefühl. And if you watch this episode at the later stage, it will probably already be online. And then you can also search for that. Always a good tip, by the way, no matter which car review you're searching, when you use the channel name Autogefühl in the YouTube search, then just the model name next to it, and then you'll probably find it. Here we can have a lot of fun to steer the XC40 around. Again, to me the most important thing is that it's really the most fun SUV they have. Even better sporty fun in this setup, the very setup we are driving right now. But as soon as you say, you know, the roads I'm usually driving are not that well done, I have a lot of bumps and so on, then again ask your dealer to remove the R-Design sport suspension setup and don't go for those optional 19-inch rims, and then you're also just fine for that. The overview, by the way, to the front, really good, not such a strong high hood. To the rear, really nice. A-pillar is not too thick, B-pillar is pretty thick, so B-pillar wise, that's a problem. But I'm not sure if you could pick that all already up on camera while we were driving. There's this, this line in the side mirrors, and that is the blind spot monitor. Also one of the, that's getting really rough then when I'm going over those bumps here. Wow, maybe you can also hear that on camera, like bop 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 bop. Yeah, bop 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 bop. Maybe I should. Oh, Audi Q2, also one of the competitors. Yeah, especially when I'm going with the right side over those uneven parts of the road. Whoa, what the hell? I hate that. Like this live traffic information, and it's always like pushing with a lot of sound. I tuned that down now in the editing for you, because otherwise you would maybe be like, whoa. But for me it was really, really loud. I tried to deactivate it earlier, but somehow the system didn't really get it. I mean, you can argue like those warnings, automatic ones, are also somewhat good, but I think they shouldn't be tuned up that loud then automatically. So we get a good flow I have with the XC40, and since we saw in the interior part that we also have some reasonable space on the inside, from the overall impression it makes, really good one, and probably then also driving wise best price performance deal they're offering at Volvo at the moment still. Although it's of course very expensive. If you spec it up, telling you the price of this very car I'm driving right now, 57,000 euros. That's too much. So try to keep it lower spec, or just pick the R design if you also like those seats like I do, or keep it base version, especially in Europe it's easy to keep it base version. Maybe even with a 3-cylinder, I mean, it will somewhat be sufficient if you're not racing the car, it's still okay. So then you can try to keep the price a little bit lower or get a special deal, because if you pick more extras, then the price is rather a little bit ridiculous considering the size of the vehicle. But good drive nevertheless. And now to our conclusion for today with the Volvo XC40. Definitely the sportiest, most fun experience in the Volvo SUV segment. maybe even overall, because it has this new platform from the small cars, has the shortest dimensions. It's really a very nice ride, especially sporty here with the R-Design Sports suspension. And again, if you have the possibility, I would go for the normal suspension to give it a little bit more comfortable ride for the everyday driving experience. The exterior is somewhat fresh, and for a small SUV it already looks quite strong already, especially here with that front. It's also a little bit more extravagant than the other Volvo SUVs. The interior also with some nice new styling ideas. I really like that. Good also with those R-Design seats with microfiber. You can also get base fabric seats, and overall I think a good work, and the package is also better than, for example, with the XC60. So in the rear here, for example, you have almost same legroom than in the XC60. It's just here in the smaller SUV you have a shorter trunk. But for most people, this one here will be the most clever choice from those Volvo SUVs. If you compare it a little bit to the competition, we have also done that. Please join our big SUV comparison episode for this segment. I will link it also in the video description and in the comments, so you can see more about that. There's a different XC40 review in that, of course, and also a lot of those competitors will be very exciting to watch. So what's your take here on the Volvo XC40? Please tell me, and join us also next time.